Thank you, Darren and Bonnie. For our last keynote of the day, please welcome Nathalie Gerschtein, President of the Consumer Products Division, North America at L'Oréal. Nathalie will be interviewed by Sarah Engel, President of January Digital.
All right, I like our theme song. So Nathalie, I'm so excited to talk with you today. We've gotten a chance to get to know each other through this process, and some of the leadership challenges that you have faced are things that people in the room have faced over the past few years. Some of them are very unique. You have been the leader of the largest division of L'Oréal for the last 4 years during massive change and during a turnaround effort. And so I wanted to start by talking about your leadership pillars. I wanted to start by talking about kind of some of your philosophy around unleashing human magic and what that means to you.
Yeah, unleashing human magic is very dear to my heart. And actually, I had the opportunity to work across different geographies at L'Oréal, obviously in Europe, but also in Asia. And I've been in the US now for the past 4 years. And what the US really taught me is vulnerable leadership. You need to have the grace to accept not to have all the answers. And at the end of the day, it's much more about learning it all versus knowing it all. And you know, L'Oréal was actually created by a scientist. And so when you are a scientist, you have to try and fail 100 times before it works. And if you had not failed 100 times, you wouldn't ultimately get to the right answer. So I would love to give you an example about that. When I arrived in the US, the face cleansing market was dominated by cleansing wipes. And so I arrived here, and we were thinking about it with the teams and feeling we need to get our fair share of this market, so let's launch into wipes. And we've been not successful at all, because why would consumer care about another wipe? So we really thought about it, tried to shift the paradigm and learn from this failure. And we decided to iterate on a new format, because at the end of the day, what consumer wanted was efficient way to remove your makeup and more sustainable way to remove your makeup. And so we launched Garnier Micellar Water. And today, one micellar water is sold in the US every 3 seconds. So it's now a huge success in the marketplace, which really started with a challenge. But together as a team, we wanted to really solve it. So we tested, learned, iterated, and this is how it came to life. So that's what I call unleashing human magic. It's also about rallying your team on a same mission. So at L'Oréal, we create the beauty that moves the world, and this is really what our teams are passionate about. I'm not the one who coined the phrase unleashing human magic, so I need to give it back to his author, who is Hubert Joly, who I'm sure a lot of you have heard his name. He was the former CEO of Best Buy, and he managed to turn around the company. And in his book that I warmly recommend, The Heart of the Business, is talking a lot about unleashing human magic.
That's great. Well, and one of the things that I wanted to dig into is something that we're both very passionate about. I'm going to shift topics a little bit. And before I do, I want to kind of give some context. So unfortunately, last week, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation came out with a new benchmark about the UN General Assembly's goal to get to gender equality by 2030. We're not going to make it there by 2030. We're not going to make it there for nearly 100 years. They're estimating 2108, so 3 generations before we actually make it with all the markers that they've put in place to get to gender equality. That's the bad news. The good news is there are 4,000 people in this room who can make a faster impact on that subject, who can use their power and their positions to make sure that we're getting to gender equity. And the even better news is we have the person who can give us the master class right here 90,000 employees, you got to gender equality as it pertains to pay. 55% of your company's strategic positions are women. Talk to us about that process. That is a massive undertaking, and I think you're proof that it absolutely is possible.
Yeah, it is absolutely possible, but it's not easy. It's really, like bringing diversity to the workplace and also equality is something that you have to be very intentional about, and it takes time. And at L'Oréal, driving that culture of inclusion is at the core of everything we do. And by the way, if you want diversity, then create a culture of inclusion. That's the way it happens, not the other way around. Diversity is really the consequence of inclusion, meaning people need to feel they belong. They need to feel seen, they need to feel recognized, and that's the way you can really create diverse teams. And at L'Oréal, we have been driving that thought for many, many years. It takes time. And yesterday, I had the pleasure to attend the Appeal of Conscience Foundation dinner in New York City. And our chairman and ex-CEO got awarded, actually last night, for his actions, towards equity, towards respect, towards diversity. And it's interesting to think that the first thing he did when he was appointed CEO of L'Oréal 15 years ago was to create 2 new positions. One was Chief Ethics Officer, and the second one was Chief Diversity Officer. That was 15 years ago, and it came right from the top. That's really the way to drive it. And today, we see the benefits of that at L'Oréal, and I'm glad to say that we are the only company in the world that have been awarded EDGE+. And EDGE, of many of you, I'm sure, are aware, but it's the Economic Dividend Gender Equality Index, and it's really managed by third-party auditors. It's an assessment tool to really see whether you achieve pay equity in all dimensions of diversity. So race, gender, disabilities, sexual orientation, age, everything. And so L'Oréal is very proud that we've been able to get that certification last year, and really speaks volume to all the efforts that came from the top, but then have been, embedded within each and every team. And for me and my team in the US, it's a major priority. We want to keep driving that culture of inclusion, and a way to do that is to keep benchmarking yourself, keep monitoring, and really track everything you do.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I think the benchmarking aspect of EDGE, but also in the way that you all have tackled this, you have a starting point, but talk to us about, in this competitive marketplace, you're trying to get key hires, you need to throw money after that. How do you maintain it over time? How do you make sure that you don't have people getting hired in from the outside? I'm sure most of us have experienced that at some point, getting hired in above people that are internal.
Yeah, so what is important is recruitment and retention, because of course L'Oréal is known as a company that values diversity, so we have a lot of diverse talents, and they get calls every day. So it's about what do we do to retain them, and it's really back to that culture of inclusion, making sure that they feel they belong, making sure that they have space to express themselves and come to work with their true selves. So we have a lot of things, in the company. We have think tanks about diversity. I have in my team DE&I champions that I meet with every month, and we have a tracker also to see how we are doing in our statistics and what still needs to be done, because there is still a lot to be done.
Absolutely. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about your customer and how much change happened over the past few years. one of the ways that you've really led innovation is by understanding your customer in new ways. And I'd love for you to talk with us a little bit about how you've understood your customer in different ways. What does that mean in terms of data, in terms of contextual feedback? And how can your teams act fast enough to actually stay one step ahead of the customer?
Yeah, consumer centricity is really at the heart of everything we do at L'Oréal, and I know we are not the only company. I think, all the marketers know that it's not about products, it's about consumers. So it's about listening to them, finding new ways, and we are very lucky to work in beauty because beauty is a very engaging category. So you see ratings and reviews all the time, you see search, we do also social listening, like consumers want to talk to us, so that's really a good thing. So we have to keep listening to them, but not only listen to what they say, but also listen to what they mean and the insight that is behind what they say. And it reminds me of a quote of Henry Ford, who said, "If I only listened to my consumers, I would have built faster horses." But he built a car, right? Because he was able to hear behind the feedback that the insight that consumers were trying to share was about speed. So how do I provide speed to my consumers? And this is really the beauty of our job as marketers. And at L'Oréal, it's about not only addressing beauty needs, but really try to understand the beauty dreams and go further with new products, in the future. So one example of that is that during the pandemic, we realized that people were not using as much foundation. Well, we do today, but we didn't use as much during the pandemic. When you are behind your screen, you don't really need a flawless skin. And even after the pandemic, the new generation, they are not really looking for flawless skin, they are looking to be real. So they don't use as much foundation. So we had to really understand why and then what do they want. What they want is healthy-looking skin and products that can do good to their skin. And that's how we came up with tinted serums that are definitely now the favorite formats for Gen Z. And it wouldn't have been possible without that mindset of always keeping consumer centricity top of mind and at the center of everything we do.
Okay, that's so helpful. And I would love to talk about some of the innovations that your team came up with. And I think that kind of listening to your younger consumer, but also listening to your younger employees, making sure that you're getting those ideas from anywhere in the organization. NYX recently partnered with The Sandbox and People of Crypto to launch an avatar collection. It incorporated different skin tones, different orientations, ethnicities, gender identities, and allowed you to try on makeup, right? So it was a completely inclusive experience. How did that initiative come to life? Did that come from younger teammates? Did that come from somebody senior reading an article somewhere? How did that come to life?
I mentioned that at L'Oréal, we have that kind of test and learn spirit that is very ingrained in everything we do. And so we want to always be ahead of every new trend. And we need to be where consumers are. And today, they are also in the metaverse. So you ask, who had this idea? Well, certainly not me. But I believe in reverse mentoring as well. So our NYX professional makeup team is very creative, really fun-loving people, and a lot of them are Gen Z. So they really know where those consumers are, what are the places, what are the things they want to see, what does authentic content and authentic relationships mean for them. So for me, and I'm going to fly tonight to LA to actually see my NYX team tomorrow, and when I'm with them, for me, it's just so exciting because I learn a ton from what they can say and from the ideas they have. And I believe that learning agility can really propel us into the future instead of going into the past. So I think that idea of reverse mentoring, listening to the new kids on the blocks in the team is extremely rewarding, and we need, as leaders, to keep doing that. So NYX is not only a fantastic makeup brand, it's also a brand that is committed to create more diversity around them. And they realized that actually in the metaverse, there is not as much diversity and inclusion. So there's an opportunity, since it's really new, to start building, more equity, more inclusion, more diversity into this metaverse. And that's how they came up, for the last Pride Month in June with new avatars showing all kinds of, age, gender, sexual orientation, disabilities. But, instead of me explaining it, I would love, if we have time, to show a little video so everybody can see what it really looks like in the metaverse. So let's have a look at the short video. So that tells, much more than me talking about it for hours. And it really shows that it's important to remain ahead of the game, and you can do it in a way that connects with consumers. And I'm sure the NYX team is already thinking about the next metaverse, so I learn more tomorrow.
Talk to me a little bit about how your consumer is actually focused. I mean, that has shifted over the past few years. Are they more focused on replenishment, more focused on discovery? And also, kind of what tools and processes have you put in place to be able to answer, what they're looking for in terms of discovery and replenishment?
Yeah, so what's great about the beauty industry is that the discovery journey is never complete. Like, there are new innovations all the time. I'm sure all the women in this room know that there's always a new lipstick, a new mascara, and it's difficult to keep up. But at the same time, those new products make up approximately 30% of the retail sales of the category every year. So there is still 70%, which is about replenishment. So it's very important to take care of both. And today, there are ways to really manage both within even the same platform. I'll give you the example of TikTok, because, of course, after talking about the metaverse, we have to talk about TikTok, which really started to boom, during the pandemic. And so on TikTok, people want to see content that speaks to them. And that's the way things become viral. And our Maybelline team created a new mascara called Sky High that became totally viral on TikTok last year. It became viral because the content, because the product first was extremely on trend. It's a lengthening mascara, and there were not so many in the market. And also because the content that they created with influencer was resonating with the audience. But at the same time, on the same platform, influencer decided to make another product viral, which is also a lengthening mascara, the telescopic mascara from L'Oréal Paris, which had been in our portfolio for several years. So whether it's about discovery or replenishment, you can even drive it on the same platform. And it's really important for our companies because it's not only about acquiring new consumers all the time, but it's also about retention. We want to increase consumer lifetime value, and by focusing on replenishment and retention, you can do that over time.
Absolutely. Well, we only have a few minutes left. Let's end. I want to get your hot take on something. I think that the beauty industry is quite innovative. A lot of things you're doing are really leading edge. It's also a place where there's so many heritage brands. It's often a we've always done it this way situation. So I want to get your take on what is either no longer done this way, shouldn't be done this way, like what is dead in beauty or what needs to be dead at this point?
It's a very interesting question. When I arrived in the US and I started, to get to meet my team, go to all the different departments, marketers, sales, supply chain, and I would often ask, why are you doing the things the way you're doing them? And too often the answer was, because we have always done it that way. And I'm like, we need to shift the paradigm. I'm sure that was the right way to do things so far, because L'Oréal is the #1 company in beauty in the world, so that's well done. But if we want to remain the #1 beauty company for the 20 years to come, maybe there are things we need to change. And so it's been my motto with my team since I've been in the US to talk about breaking the autopilot. Break the autopilot, just think about why are you doing the things the way you do them. If it's still relevant, great, keep going. But if you think there are better ways, to be more future fit, then you have the license to change. And let's try new things. Let's innovate together. One example of that is the way we now create content with influencers. In the past, when we started in the industry, it was about creating a TV commercial or a print ad, and until, probably 5 years ago, it was still the way to operate. And so the brands would push their content to consumers. Today, that's not the way it works anymore. Today, you need to be authentic, you need to engage, you need to create rapid, raw, relevant content, and you do that only by partnering with influencers. So we need to force our teams to look at things differently. We shouldn't be scared about doing things differently, because it's really opening up a sea of new opportunities.
Okay, autopilot is dead. Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All for being here.
Thank you very much.